So climate change is really a symptom of a much larger set of sustainability challenges. And the fundamental issue really is that, especially in rich countries, our production and consumption is wildly out of whack with human scale and planetary concerns. Well, the fundamental challenge really is that as climate change being a symptom of a much larger set of sustainability challenges, we're missing a fundamental conception of quality of life for all. So we've been driven by the Enlightenment notion of progress as vision for quality of life, which ties economic growth and technological growth directly to social progress. What we've learned in the past 100 years or so is that social progress doesn't come directly with economic growth and technological growth. Social progress is contingent upon a whole variety of factors. And we see that there's more stress, there's more inequality associated with this stress. People's happiness has not really improved. So the idea of quality of life is really this notion of what does it really mean to live a good life on this planet Earth, given the biogeophysical constraints that it has. And that means improving quality of life for all, which means humans in rich countries, which may benefit and improve their quality of life by reduced scale of consumption and production, or different kinds of consumption and production. And those in other countries which are not so economically well off, where they need some increases in consumption and production to improve their quality of life. Well, reaching the change in part involves shifting the grand narrative that we have. So the grand narrative that comes even before this Enlightenment notion of progress is really one that ties individualism as being part of quality of life. It has an exploitive view of resources. It has this issue of technological and economic growth as core to that principle. And then fundamentally it has this notion of anthropocentrism, so that human beings are the center of the world. So what we need is a shift in this grand narrative to one in which we move from anthropocentrism to identification with all life, not just human life, where we see a shift from this notion that technological growth and economic growth sort of are necessary, to one that technological growth and economic growth are neither good nor bad. It depends upon the form of technological growth and economic growth that we have. So this grand narrative shift is really at the core of moving to a well-being society. Well, there are a whole variety of skills, and really what we need to think about is that the formal education system that we have today drives and perpetuates that exploitive grand narrative. So if we want to move to a life-affirming grand narrative, we need to not just sort of reform our education system, but reimagine our education system. So we need a formal learning structure which promotes a whole lifelong learning approach, which is focused on a notion of life affirming, of the common good of all human beings. And that's what a well-being society is grounded on. So that would mean research changes in terms of our research priorities. It would mean changes in terms of the formal structures that education is grounded in. It would mean formal changes in government policy to support changes in education, to support changes in finance, to support changes in what kinds of technologies are encouraged, what kinds of incentives are created to support certain kinds of business, how the banking system is regulated. So a whole variety of different shifts in perception are necessary to actually foster the kinds of changes in growth for a well-being society. And what we really need to see happen here is to create create and foster a space which supports the rapid prototyping of social and technological and economic experiments to support this well-being society. I think one of the core ideas is that we should consider trying to move from supporting the development of certain forms of human capacities to developing these other forms of human capacities which support the well-being society. So we've heavily invested in supporting capacities that focus on individualism and respecting the individual to create. But what we have done much less in terms of investing in our experiments and initiatives and learning processes and the development of core competencies in what we call high levels of active social learning, for the ability of people to work together and collaborate and engage really in understanding their individual cares and concerns and understanding their cares and concerns in context, so in relationship to other human beings' cares and concerns, those who are spatially separated from them, so in other countries and other cultures, and also the notion of cares and concerns in relationship to the planet and the well-being of all life, ecosystem services upon which we all depend. So there are a variety of sort of competencies that are necessary to be developed in that realm. So affinity for all life, wise decision-making, anticipatory capacity, so the ability to think in the distant future, as opposed to focus on sort of ad hoc, the challenges that are immediately before us. Those are just a couple of the competencies that are necessary to be developed. And we certainly have the capacity as human beings to develop them. The issue, I think, goes back to the point before about courage. You know, do we have the courage to help create the world that we really want, as opposed to potentially see the world of our worst fears?